We've got a Craftsman 28-inch snowblower here this morning, and basically the customer says that as soon as they start to use it or as soon as they take the choke off, it'll die sometimes. So we figure it's probably a carburetor, a fuel related issue, of course. A lot of times the issue that's going on with these. So we were going to check it out here, figure out what's going on. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and check the fuel, see what it looks like. Doesn't look like down in there's a whole lot of anything. Looks pretty clear. The fuel does. I don't see any water or anything in the bottom. You always want to check your oil, of course, before you're starting anything up. Looks like it's got oil in it, so that's half the battle sometimes with these people. This engine is made by MTD. It's made by MTD for MTD. Of course, it's made, you know, by a little place overseas somewhere, and they're not real high quality, but they do the job. It's got enough oil in it. It's definitely got a little too much, and it's kind of dirty, so I'd probably recommend getting that changed also. But let's see what's going on with the engine when we try to start it up. So what you're seeing and hearing there is as I'm moving the choke on the thing from the completely off to the partially on position, the thing's starting to run good. So from kind of their description of what's going on and you know, my knowledge here, we're obviously going to clean the carburetor out. We're going to take it apart and see how it's looking, because something's gummed up in there or the fuel isn't in real good shape. So at this point, if it doesn't fire up for any reason, you'd want to go ahead and check the spark. You can either use a clip-on spark tester like this or test it with an inline one, or you can take the spark plug out, use it against the block while you have someone help you turn it over. The carburetor is pretty easy to take off, just needs a few 10mm bolts. Couple there and then a couple over here. Sometimes there is one up top on the back side, which you're going to have to use a wrench of some sort for, because you can't get anything in there, but this one looks like it's already been removed, so someone's been in here at some point. To get the choke knob off, I'm just going to go ahead and pry lightly behind it with a screwdriver. And then your knob here has to come off. So sometimes you can just pull them off by hand. Other times, what I like to do is just kind of grab it with a pair of pliers if they're being real difficult. So this will be on there. Grab it with a pair of pliers and just kind of hit it with a hammer on this edge here. So kind of just knocks it straight off. But that's only if they're on there real difficult, which every now and again you get one like that. All right. From there it comes straight down. Well, it should come. Oh, I guess I missed the other two over here. I'm sorry. I didn't realize those were even connected on this thing. So you got two longer screws there. Pay attention where the orientation there is, because the other ones are all shorter. So the long ones go on the back side. Now we're all free. And that just pulls kind of straight out, and you've got to work it up and around because there is kind of a notch here, and then down on the bottom side you've got to get it around that. So I go ahead and take the crankcase vent tube out there. And then a couple nuts holding all of the choke assembly on. And those are just two 10mm nuts. That's all I've really used the whole time. I like to just take it off all in one piece, and then you can bring it straight down and off. Keep it together just like that. There won't be any question of how it goes back together. Take your primer tube off at this point. And then you've got your governor linkage, which just comes, well, normally just comes straight up and off. It's not wanting to go back far enough right this second. All right, so we've got it up and off, and now we're gonna move it back. And then we're gonna take the fuel line off. That's what was hindering me from getting it off there in the first place. And we're gonna go ahead and drain this fuel out. Anytime you have issues with running, or you think it may be a fuel or a carburetor related issue, you're gonna wanna just go ahead and drain all the fuel and start with some fresh. We use ethanol free fuel, and we also treat it with Phaser 3000 when it goes out of here. That just keeps any moisture, anything that gets in the tank, from causing any damage. On this, you're going to want to look at the backside on the, and this is the intake gasket. This one is paper thin. I'm not sure how that even sealed anything. That may be where part of our issue's coming from. It's just an air leak here. It looks like it's a homemade gasket. We see a lot of that stuff where you can tell somebody's been into it or tried to work on it themselves. So we'll replace that before we put it back together. If there's any question about this gasket in the back at all, do replace it. You know, this guy used a pretty thin stuff, but you could make your own. I mean, it's not a horribly bad area to cut out. So as long as you've got a good seal, you could make your own if you wanted to. So looks like he did a halfway decent job of that. He just didn't use something thick enough really to seal it off. So we're going to take this carburetor apart next and figure out exactly what we got going on. So we've got the carburetor ready to take apart. I did want to point out that the primer line here did break off, so no big deal. When I take them off anyway, no matter what, I cut the primer line back as long as there's space about that far, just to give you somewhere new for the primer to actually seat to on that nipple, because all that rubber does is just get hard over time anyway. So if the line's real brittle like this one is anyway, I'm going to go ahead and replace probably the whole thing. That's the easiest and best way to do it. So you don't need a whole lot to take this thing apart or clean it or anything. Really the simplest way is a pair of pliers, wire brush, and you need something to be able to take the middle jet out. So cleaners come in handy too, of course. We've got torch tip cleaners, and then just some other miscellaneous cleaners. If they're real bad, definitely those come in handy. You know, something like this, we're going to open it up and see what it looks like on the inside. It doesn't look real good right here. If they're horrible, you're going to want to replace it. If you're in a pinch or anything like that, I'll show you how to clean it. That, or if it's not too bad. Yeah, see, there's definitely some stuff down in the bottom. So I'm not sure exactly what that is. Almost looks like pieces of the fuel line. So that may be what we're seeing. That may be what's clogging up those jets. The fuel line's just starting to deteriorate and cause this issue. The fuel, I don't see any water or anything in the bottom there, so I'm not sure the fuel's an issue. We'll look down in this main jet. Looks like it may have some black stuff down in there. So I just took this out. It comes out either way. There's no flat spot on this one like there are on some. So take it out, go ahead and take the float out, comes straight up and out. Notice how that needle and spring sits in there. If you want to take it out, you just push it to the side and it pops straight through and goes back in just kind of the same way. So super easy there. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure on this that on all four of these corners that all of those have nothing on them. So you don't want anything on this needle here at all, because if you have anything on the needle, this thing's not going to shut off your fuel. It's going to get caught. So it'll get caught, and then the fuel will continue to flow by, and you'll have gas mixed in with your oil. So when you checked your oil, if you had gas mixed in with it, in with it. Obviously you're going to want to change that out before you do anything else after you get this carburetor all cleaned up. A lot of times if they're leaking, you want to look at this rubber tip, make sure it's nice and pliable. There's nothing anywhere that would cause it not to work. So a lot of times they'll get kind of gummy and stuff over the years, and you can feel that when you're just kind of poking into them. So if it's feeling like it's not going to pop right back to where it was, you're going to want to replace it. It should be even all the way around there and feel nice and pliable. We'll take that middle jet out. And you're going to want a screwdriver that fits down in there real solid. You don't want something too thin though, because then you can strip the brass out. This is a pretty hard jet to get out sometimes. Just back it all the way out, and it doesn't screw all the way to the end. Once you get there, sometimes you'll have to kind of just, we like to use some wood or something like that to make it nice and easy. But if you look down straight through the middle at the bottom side, you can see just the tip of that brass poking up. So with the tip of that brass poking up, you can take a screwdriver and just get it down in there and poke it. Oh, and then it just fell right out the bottom. So this guy sits in there, and that's what you were seeing up through the middle in there, was just the tip of that. So I took the screwdriver and pushed it out. It came right out. So let's see if we have... So this is your emulsion tube. Let's see here. You should be able to see through all of these, a perfect light coming through. If you can't see a perfect light coming through, then there's something blocking it when you come to each one of these holes. So look at that. You want to spray that off. If there's any kind of green gunk or anything, you can see on this one it is. You can take your wire brush, clean it up real well. Anything on that, if it accumulates over time, it will affect your running. So clean that all up, and then look down in your main jet. It seems pretty clear in this case. It might have fallen out when we were messing with it, but again, carburetor cleaner you can use for this. It works pretty well. And at that, you can see where it goes. You spray down through the, should be able to see the spray, and it should be even all the way across there as you're spraying that. If it's not, you've got issues. All right, so everything looks good. If there's any kind of buildup down here in the main jet, anywhere down through there, you're going to want to clean that all out also. If you don't, it'll just keep accumulating on either side. It'll just keep accumulating, run you right back into the same issue again. Right in here, looks like there's a black piece right on the side. Yeah, oh, no. Yeah, it is. It's a piece of, pretty sure it's a piece of that rubber hose. So we're going to blow this out. Use carb cleaner, clean it out. Obviously, I got kind of everything right here, but you don't want to rinse it right back onto itself or onto something that was previously cleaned. So now we're going to take out this top jet here. A lot of people don't check these, don't really pay much attention, and then they get done cleaning their carburetor and it surges real bad. Well, a lot of times this is the reason why. So if you take that up out of there, I'm going to blow it out real good. It is a jet down through here also. So I can't see anything down through there right now. So you can use just pieces of your wire brush, and a lot of times I just take a pair of pliers or something and pull out a loom of them. Works great for these tiny little jets in here that you can't really get anything else down in. You want to poke that out, so make sure that that hole, that jet through there is clean. If not, you'll get surging real bad. So again, should be able to see light down through there. So should be a perfect circle, should come nice and good through. So that's all good. So we'll throw it back in there after we finish cleaning this up. You're going to want to look at the seat here for the needle. So all around this brass area in here, if there's anything down in there around the brass, you're going to want to have that cleaned off, because anywhere on the sides, that'll get that hanged up. So if it gets that needle hanged up again, you'll just pour gas right back into your crankcase. It won't work well. I like to just run, since this has kind of a groove to it, I like to just run it along the inside all the way. That, or you can use one of the bigger brushes or something, you know, brush it down through there. You can use some carb cleaner just to kind of clean everything off. But you want that spot, that's one of the most important spots, along with the main jet, is here, because even if it's running right, if it passes that fuel into your crankcase, you know, and you have the wrong person using it, or if you don't check the oil for some reason, you're going to run into an issue where you could ruin your engine. So all over something simple like that. So again, this just goes right back straight down in. Flat spot goes towards you and away from you. There's two on it. And then you've got just kind of a little adapter here for these larger carburetors. I think it just holds that down because it sits against the bottom of the screw. And you want to screw that in. Normally it goes right about there. So on these, you can adjust it. If you go low and your snowblower dies, you can adjust it in some, but right about there, a little bit further in, is usually right where they go. So all right, make sure there's nothing on it. You can blow back through all the holes, make sure everything's good, nice and dry. No more water in it if you've used an ultrasonic cleaner. A lot of times we use the ultrasonic, so it'll be in water, you know, for however long we decide to clean it for, depending on how bad it is. But that should just move up and down in there just freely as can be. So you can, at this point, if you'd like, you could use a vacuum tester on it and actually test suction here, you know, with the valve closed like this, and or like this with it open, either way. But when you push it up, you know, this should be sealed. And when you're letting it down, you should obviously, you know, have an open channel for your fuel to run in. And go ahead and put the jet back in there. The smaller end and the longer end go up if the carburetor is facing up, and down if it's upside down, of course. Goes right back in there. This one wasn't too bad, but a lot of them you'll have to clean, and it does have some good stuff in the bottom. A lot of them you'll have to clean out pretty good. You'll have to spend a lot of time on to get it 100% clean. Again, if it's super bad, if you open it up, and I'll show you here, if there's a bunch of stuff in it, like some of these, you know, a lot of times it's gonna be cheaper and easier just to go ahead and replace it. So if you spend all that time and effort to rebuild it and it ends up not working for any reason, or ends up leaking again or something like that, definitely ends up not being worth the time. Kind of a waste of your investment, a waste of your time. So get this back together. I'll show you one over on the side. So it's all back together. Looks like the fuel line or the primer line just kind of came off there. So on this guy here, if it's something to where you're in a situation like this, where if you look down in there, all you've got just chunks of rust, chunks of whatever. You know, you can see it's all up through into the jet, all around. Just that's going to be a carburetor that you're probably not going to want to rebuild. I mean, when you get that much stuff out of it, you know, getting every piece of that off, especially at the inlet and at the seat and stuff, is going to be an issue. You know, this thing's got stuff all over it. So just be mindful of spending, you know, an absorbent amount of time trying to clean them, when in reality, sometimes they may just be replaced. So We went ahead and replaced the intake gasket here, so it's all brand new gasket. And then we replaced the fuel line. We blew everything out. We like to reflush everything after we blow it out, so we're doing that currently. We got a new fuel line on there. It just took 2 more bolts out from the side over here to get that done. So when you flush everything out, we do it with new ethanol-free fuel. And what will happen is if there's any kind of moisture or anything left in there, it'll all grab to the bottom of that fuel, but the fuel will actually pull it out of there. So then we're able to actually pull it off the bottom of this fuel in here. So it works out pretty well. Go ahead and put that governor linkage back on first. And you do want to make sure that spring is intact. If it's not, you'll run into some surging sometimes. So a lot of times it doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. So since we've already flushed that out of there, if you're not actually flushing it, what a lot of people will do is they'll put like a new towel or something down in the top and use an air compressor to blow it out. Because here, even though it looks like it's drained, it's not. So if we put a little bit of pressure in there, there's still some down in the bottom of that. So you want to make sure that that's dry if you're not using the flush method. So this is all good ethanol-free fuel that's coming out of here anyway during our flush. But if you're not doing that, you're definitely going to want to make sure that that tank is completely dry. So we had those black pieces in there. If you blow all that out of the top, that'll keep that from gumming that thing back up or getting back in the jets or anything to that nature. So go ahead and hook it back up. And we've got a couple. And I did go ahead and replace the primer line also, so it's got new primer line all on it. That stuff gets brittle a lot of times and then it just cracks in one spot and then it gets no pressure whatsoever to give you any sort of prime. Okay. Throw the primer on there. Put this all back. And when it's going back up top, just make sure everything lines up. Pull it up top. You obviously want your 2 longer ones in the back like we talked about before. So there's 2 different sizes of nuts or bolts that go through here. Put the longer ones towards the spark plug. Shorter ones up front. And then you got your 2 black ones up at the front here. Choke on. Throttle lever on. Go ahead and put it to max there. Throw some fuel in it real quick. See how this thing runs. Go ahead and tighten these. And we got the cover back on this side. And cap on, and we should be all ready to go. Let's see what we got. So we don't get any more of that surging at the top end. It doesn't take choking it to get it to kind of smooth out or anything like that. With that original running, if you have it running like that, what you're going to run into is when you get into any sort of snow drift, it's just going to fall flat on its face, just bleh. Where this thing is actually going to throw that snow with a chute like this, and it's going to come up and out and go 30 feet. So that's the difference between having your carburetor you know, clean like it should be, and the engine running right and at the right fuel air mixture, and the difference between it not. So this Craftsman 277cc engine made by MTD, again, not real high quality, it's just kind of a clone engine, but it is one of those that can be fixed relatively easily. Parts are readily available. The major issue we have with these is really just the ethanol and the fuel. So if you want to find the information of your actual engine, it'll usually either be stamped in the block over on that side, or on the other side a lot of times there's a sticker. See if we have one here. We sure do. That tells you exactly what the first number is, the 478-SU. That's going to be what the model number of this engine is. So thanks for watching. Hopefully that gets your snowblower all back up and going. Like and subscribe.